lace up those cleats and put on those mitts. It's time for another exciting edition of Our Little Yankees podcast. Stepping up to the mic, it's the OLYP team.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome inside another exciting, brand spanking new episode of Our Little Yankees podcast. Episode 12. I am Julian Coulter, joined alongside my fellow members of the OLYP team, Josh Levin.
What up, what up?
And the incomparable Eric Ray Sepulveda. E-Ray, how you doing, brother?
Good, guys. How's everyone doing today?
Pretty good, man.
Nobody's going to answer you, but unless you're talking to us.
You're talking to us or you're talking to the audience?
I'm talking to you guys, and of course the fans will answer me when they listen to this. They'll be like, I'm doing well, I'm doing bad, I'm doing okay. They hear me.
Right, I agree. Absolutely. So as you guys know, it's episode 12. I think we're all doing good. Started this episode way back when, and the Yankees had just lost in the American League Division Series, and it hurt, and we were all bummed about it. And then we started talking about the breakdowns, and then we started to talk about everything that was happening with keep 'em and trash 'em. And then we got to the lull, the point in the offseason where nothing was happening. And week after week, we went on this podcast and we said, what are the Yankees doing, man? When are they going to make some moves? And then the Lindor trade happened last week. And we went out and we buried the Yankees about how Lindor was their second option behind DJ LeMahieu. So just go out there and pay the man and do what you need to do in order to get them there. And I would like to think, folks, that the OLYP team, your boys at Our Little Yankees podcast, helped give Brian Cashman the extra spark that he needed, because just several days after listening to our episode, DJ LeMahieu in the wee hours of the morning signed a brand spanking new contract. And it was glorious, as they say. And it was a glorious day for New York sports, might I add, because if you're a Jets fan, you got Robert Saleh, who was the new head coach, and rumors of Deshaun Jackson coming, as well as potential other things that we will talk about before. But in the wee hours of the morning, we found out that John Morrissey said that the Yankees and DJ were close to a deal. It eventually evolved to that they were in a deal. And when the dust settled, boys, DJ LeMahieu re-signed with the Yankees, 6 years, $90 million. We will get into the nitty-gritty of the contract and what it means and all the great things that we have to look forward to now that DJ is re-signed. But when I asked you how you're feeling, usually I'll put a little Yankee stuff in there. So now I'll ask you, how do you feel about DJ?
Couldn't be happier that he's back. I mean, it was, they needed to do it. The best player on the team, letting him walk would have been a disaster. So we all kind of knew that it would happen. We were just getting a little impatient with how long it was taking, but it's a good thing that it's done. And now we can kind of just focus on the rest of the offseason and what else they may or may not do to improve the team. But bringing back DJ was the bare minimum. So at least they have a passing grade at this point, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, Friday morning when I saw that tweet, because of course I was still up since, I work.
He does work overnights.
I saw the tweet, and as you can imagine, I ran around my apartment. I couldn't sleep for the next 3 hours because we got our guy, DJ LeMahieu. By the way, I will say, I never doubted Brian Cashman. I always knew he was going to get it done, baby. Brian, I kept talking to you every week here. Brian, get it done, get it done, get it done. And like you said, Joel, we talked about it a little earlier that week, and I think I tweeted, by the way, because it was a phenomenal week for me as a New York sports fan when it comes to the Nets getting Harden and Salah coming as Jets head coach. I tweeted the night prior, hey, why don't the Yankees sign DJ LeMahieu tomorrow? And what happened about 12 hours later? Boom, DJ LeMahieu.
Tell them what else you put in that
as
tweet.
A New York
you got to tell them what else you put in the tweet.
What else did I put in the tweet?
You put parentheses, I know they won't, though.
Oh, you're right.
You can't leave that out because it was your reverse jinx that helped Brian Cashman be like, all right, screw E-Ray, screw the OLYP team. They've been riding me, and I want to prove them wrong. So they don't think I'm going to do this tonight? Well, a couple hours later, those wheels turned, and they got the job done. So your reverse psychology, E-Ray, with that tweet, I'm going to say that coupled with the pod officially led to DJ coming back.
All right, so let me also say, okay, the Yankees will not win the World Series this year. Let's see it. Let's see it right here on January 19th. The Yankees will not win the World Series this year. Let's see if they get the message there. But no, man, I mean, also, like, I remember last week we were saying that the contract DJ wanted and all that hoopla, but, like, this contract that Brian Cashman got for him was phenomenal. I mean, 90 years, Jesus. No, 90 million, 6 years, 15. It was all about that AAV helps the Yankees this season when it comes to the luxury tax. I mean, it was phenomenal job by Brian Cashman. DJ want to come back? I mean, again, high five for you, man. High five for Brian Cashman. He's back, and I'm happy, man. We got DJ LeMahieu back. We avoided the doomsday scenario, but the Yankees still have some work to do. We're not done. Hopefully, we'll see if this is just the start of the ending of our offseason, because we still have a lot of question marks.
Whether or not we're going to give a shout out to Steve Cohen, I feel like you kind of almost have to, because the Mets going out there and making the deal for Francisco Lindor really seemed to level and get rid of the tension that was stuffed in the pipe, so to speak, of the MLB offseason. And then it was less than a week almost after that the Yankees were able to sign DJ LeMahieu. And makes you wonder, we talked about it on the pod last week, that Lindor was their second option. Who's to say that once that second option was off the board, that Brian Cashman really did say, all right, well, now we do have to get our butt into gear and we have to bring this guy back. We can't afford to wait, because at this point, another team went out there and got the guy who we were looking for. We know we want DJ back in the building. There were rumors he had talked to other teams, but it kind of always felt like, as you guys mentioned, and we had talked about previously in the pod, that we did get a little bit, I think, suspect and really impatient when it came to what we wanted to do, that DJ was meant to come back. I'm glad you bring up the contract, D-Ray, because that is the most important thing. When this team, and we look at them wanting to operate under the luxury tax, for them to do a 6-year deal for $90 million lowers that annual luxury tax hit, so to speak. And it's really team friendly for the Yankees. And for DJ, he now has job security into that 6th year. And for a guy who is not a slugger, and I've said this so many times to people who have asked me about the contract over the last week, and I even said it on that little teaser video we did on our Twitter page at our Little Yanks Pod, if you want to follow us on Twitter. I said that I'm not worried about DJ because he can hit for average. He's a good hitter all around, and he's got a very good glove. So 6 years from now, end of the contract, probably a decent guy to come off the bench, as opposed to a Giancarlo Stanton, who 6 years from now is going to be a shell of himself because he's a slugger who can't stay healthy. Not really worried about with DJ. So a great contract for the Yankees in terms of being able to give them flexibility, which we will talk about in this podcast, and a great contract for DJ, who was looking for the years and the money, and he was able to get it from the team that needed him the most, and the team he was an MVP for the last 2 years.
Seems like he wanted the 90 million number was kind of the magic number for him, based on what Josh Donaldson got, I guess was last offseason from the Twins, about 92 million on a 4-year deal. So I think 90 was the magic number that DJ wanted to hit. There was reports, I guess a month or so ago, about, the Yankees being $25 million apart from DJ in their negotiation. And at that point, it looked like it was going to be an $100 million contract. And we were starting to get nervous about having to pay him $25 million a year or something around there. So for the way it worked out, I think, it worked out great. I don't think if you would have told me last week that the Yankees were going to sign DJ, I would have said, yeah, I agree. They'll probably sign him. But I don't think I would have said 90 million for 6 years. I think I would have picked way up with the dollars and down with the years. But this works out really well for the Yankees, because in the short term, they need to be focused on doing whatever they can to bring a championship home while they still have this core. And to remind everyone, it looks like it's about the window is probably 2 more years before things start to change, because Judge and Sanchez, those are their last 2 years of arbitration. And they're going to enter their 30s very soon. So in the short term, the Yankees had to focus on, let's try to keep the money down, the luxury tax hit down, so we can try to add some more players to the roster in the spots that we need to. And In the long term, they'll deal with whatever the downside is in DJ's late 30s if it means winning now. And that's the type of move you want to see the Yankees make, where it's focused on the short term and it's less about 5 years from now, because they know, well, we hope that they know that right now is the time they need to be focusing on.
Yeah, I think also, what was it? The Blue Jays offered 4 years for $78 million, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So, I mean, that's a pretty good offer too. But yeah, it just seems like, like we've been saying, DJ just wanted to come back here. And we always said the last couple months that, all right, if you don't want to give him $100 million, then give him more years. Give him either up the years or less money, right? And they went up the years, and $690, man, that's, again, just a perfect contract for the perfect guy in this lineup. I mean, what he made $12 million last year. Now it's kind of just like a $3 million increase, really. That's crazy to me. So I think the Yankees ended up well here. DJ ended up well. He's back with the team, and the fans ended up well. It's over with, and we're all just happy, man, that our guy is back.
You know who else ended up well?
Who?
The viewers of Our Little Yankees podcast. Because for those of you who might not remember, about 3 episodes ago, when we were in the midst of the slog that was the slow MLB offseason, we started to talk about moves that could be made. And for those of you that remember, at the end of the episode, a couple of episodes ago, Eric Ray Sepulveda said that the next big free agent to sign, if I have a hunch, I bet it will be George Springer going to the Mets. And I said
that's
to
what
him,
my sources told me. I don't know.
I said to Eric Ray Sepulveda, are you willing to bet that? And he said, absolutely. And I said, what are you willing to bet? And he said, I don't know. And I said, would you bet a pie in the face? And he accepted that bet. And because the Yankees love me and Josh so much, we will get to see E-Ray pie himself. You can show the pie off, E-Ray. Show it off. You got to talk a little and make sure it shows up on camera for this.
Oh, no.
Did you drop it?
Yeah.
All right, well.
We got technical difficulties here. Don't worry about it.
Here's the thing. E-Ray is going to do the pod in this episode. We will give him till the end of the episode for 2 reasons. One, so that way he doesn't have to do a podcast with whipped cream pie all over his face. And 2, so he can eventually go and make sure that it is not screwed up, because he's already walking there to do it now in the middle of the pod. He literally got up to do it when I was going to say I was going to allow him to do it later. But anyway, because of that, and because DJ LeMahieu signing the contract and therefore making E-Ray's prediction about George Springer null and void, we now will have the opportunity to see Eric Ray Sepulveda at the end of this podcast hit himself with a plate full of whipped cream pie. And I'm very excited for that. Josh, are you agree?
All I have to say is thank you, DJ, and thank you, Brian Cashman, for making this moment possible.
This moment will be something. Again, we having spilled the whipped cream all over my computer. Just giving giving that to the viewers. Just imagine that. I mean, it is me. I am a klutz, but we're gonna see. Oh, Jesus,
it's gonna be exciting.
We're gonna continue, baby.
Here's the thing. I will let you in on a secret. I was very tempted to try and make you agree to doing it at a random point in the show.
Wow.
Because in my opinion, people love our podcast, but you are ratings, and therefore they want to see you hit yourself with a pie. So if I don't tell them when you're going to hit them with the pie, then they got to listen to the whole podcast to try and find that. If they know it's going to come at the end, then they might just skip to the end, which none of our fans do, because every single one of them listen to the podcast and everything we have to talk about. But I want to have that extra fail safe. But because I'm a nice guy, and because I'm a good dude, and because you're a good friend of mine, Eric Ray Sepulveda, I'm going to make sure that you are as comfortable as possible.
You're a good guy, but I just want to – you said something that I just want you to repeat to the viewers again. What?
That your ratings?
Okay.
Egomania is running wild, baby.
But here's the thing. For our past viewers and for our new viewers, or for any viewers that might come because we post the crap out of E-Ray hitting himself with a whipped cream pie, he is ratings. and he will continue to be ratings well into the Yankees season. Because if you think off-season E-Ray is ratings now, doing a little whipped cream pie, getting a little mad at Brian Cashman, talking about doing stuff on overnights or subtweeting the Yankees about not signing anybody, then you have not seen E-Ray in his full form, which you will see during mid-June random games on Tuesday.
Maybe not even June. We might get to April on Tuesday games. Maybe opening day, first inning, first walk. Who knows? You never know with this guy. I don't even know. Remember the hamster in the wheel, guys.
You're right.
It's whatever that guy wants. And that guy wants my laptop to be clean, but apparently it's not working out right now. But
well, as far as the clean laptop is concerned, and as far as the pie in the face is concerned, we will save that for a little later on in the OLYP episode. We do have more to talk about because I mentioned this before, guys, that it seemed like that Lindor trade kind of cleared the pipes that was the Yankees off or the MLB offseason, and then coincidentally the Yankees offseason as well. Well, no later than I would wager maybe 12, 15 hours after we found out that DJ LeMahieu was going to be re-signing with the New York Yankees, the Yankees made another move, and it was one that we didn't really talk about on the pod because it was rumors rumbling, but nothing really more. But now we get a chance to fully break it down in hindsight and talk about everything that transpired. And that is Corey Kluber, two-time Cy Young Award winner, former Cleveland Indians ace, last year Texas Rangers pitcher, will be pitching for the New York Yankees in 2021. He signed a one-year contract worth $11 million. It is important to note he has not pitched in 2 seasons, I believe, at this point. I believe got hit with a comebacker that hurt his arm 2 years ago, and then last year he wound up having a shoulder injury, which only allowed him to pitch what I believe is 1 inning, and that was it.
Yeah.
So he's got not that many mileage numbers on his arm the last 2 years. That also has the reverse negative, which means he hasn't pitched in 2 years. And now he'll be pitching, hopefully, for the New York Yankees in 2021 for the entire year. Guys, what are your thoughts on Kluber?
Well, it's a good move, obviously, because it's a one-year deal. I mean, $11 million for 1 year in a time when the Yankees are operating as if $200 million is a salary cap is a lot of money to give a guy who he pitched 1 inning since he pitched 1 inning in 2020, hasn't pitched a full season since 2018. So it's a bit risky on that in that sense, but it's a good move because they need the pitching, they need the rotation depth. The problem is that the Yankees shouldn't be expecting the Kluber of old. Now we know that the person that prepared Kluber for the bullpen session or the workout that he did last week is Eric Cressy, who is in the Yankee organization as their I believe he's the strength coach. And Matt Blake, the pitching coach, worked with Kluber in Cleveland when they were both in the Indians organization. So maybe there's a sense of familiarity that the Yankees feel good about, that maybe they have more information on Kluber than other teams. Kluber apparently turned down better offers to come to the Yankees, so he probably feels good about working with those two guys, and he probably likes the championship chances in New York. But the thing that worries me is that when they're operating as if $210 million is a hard cap, giving $11 million to a guy who's in his mid-30s, who's barely pitched in 3 years, it's a big time risk. Now, yeah. I'm not saying that I didn't want them to sign him, because I did, and I'm hoping that he can be healthy through most of the season and be there in October in the end when it's really important. I'm not expecting the 2-time Cy Young winner to be back when he's, back on the mound in the Bronx. But what I am hoping for is that it's a steady guy that we can count on to eat some innings. He's not a number 2 starter that I would rely on at this moment unless he proves that he is. So what I'm worried about is there's 2 ways to look at it. Either this is the start of acquiring more pitching depth, or this is the end. And they pushed basically all the chips they had left in on a guy who's barely been healthy in 3 years. So that's where I'm kind of at with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same with Josh, man. I mean, I love Corey Kluber. I did want him as well. I did think he was going to get in that $6 million,
Yeah.
$7 million range. So this was a very much surprise. And as Josh alluded, like they weren't the only team to offer more than 10 million and he wanted to come here, but it's risky. And I hope, of course, all Yankee fans hope that he returns to not even the Cy Young of old that he was, but just half of that, just something that, stay healthy and can pitch well. And it's not even that much about the regular season, right? I feel like when you look at our staff, it's Garrett Cole, who's a given. And then now it's Kluber, Montgomery, Herman, Severino's going to come back. Then you have Schmidt, Debbie Garcia. These are all unknowns. It could be really good or it could be really bad. And that's what's the cause of concern here. But I think they'll be okay in the regular season. I'm never worried about the regular season. This team should be, even with this much question marks, I believe that this team should be good enough, especially with the other AL East teams that have kind of gotten worse. I think they should be good enough to make the playoffs. It's really going to come down to in October. Garrett Cole, and after that, can Severino return to what he was 2 years ago? Can Kluber can he stay healthy the whole season, then return to what he was when he won the Cy Young? These are all big question marks, but yeah, I mean, I like the signing. I just didn't expect it to be that much, but what Josh said, we'll see if the Yankees are done here or if I think they're going to have to get creative.
Yeah.
Some more moves, because I think they shouldn't be done. I think that we still need some pitching help, and hopefully Brian Cashman's working the phones trying to get another pitcher in here because we need that.
They need another arm that's more reliable than Kluber. Somebody who maybe they aren't a true number two, but somebody who you at least can reasonably expect to stay healthy for an entire season and give you quality pitching, quality innings. And that's what they need, that they still are missing. And that person is out there. Maybe we'll get to that later, but his name is Masahiro Tanaka. But
that's true.
So I'll address two things in regards to both topics because I feel like they're both relevant. So first things first, and I said this on the Twitter video we posted on Friday after he signed, I honestly kind of believe that Corey Kluber might not be AL Cy Young Award winner Corey Kluber, but I think he's going to be a very serviceable, if not above serviceable pitcher for the New York Yankees. And the reason why is I feel like he just hasn't had the opportunity to be that the last 2 years and therefore doesn't have that much mileage on his arm. I talked about the two injuries that he suffered. Shoulder injury is not the same as if he needed Tommy John surgery or he tore his rotator cuff or something like that. And I know David Cohn agrees with that same sentiment because he was saying it yesterday on Yankees Hot Stove. This isn't one that's all of a sudden going to change the way that a guy pitches, especially somebody like him who has been a power pitcher, but also a finesse pitcher over the last couple of years, and he can work both ways. So that encourages me. And the other thing that encourages me was the injury before that, coming off a comebacker. His last year in Cleveland, he had a 5.8 ERA, but he only pitched 35 innings. And that was because he got hurt, and then he was never really able to get back on the field after that. If you had told me he got Tommy John or something like that, and he missed half of that season and then missed all last year, then I would have been like, all right, this sounds like Troy Tulowitzki 2.0, where they're trying to grab somebody who was once good, but really is not good at all. And therefore, what are they really expecting from this guy? But I don't feel that because when you look at his 2018 season, which was his last fully healthy season, started 33 games. He did 2.8 ERA. He wound up going 200 innings, and he struck out 222 batters. So the stuff is there. And I think if he has the opportunity to showcase his stuff, aka he stays healthy, obviously, and if the last 2 years he hasn't, but, it's not as if his arm has been the reason why he hasn't been able to stay healthy. And he can pitch to the ability that he had, then I think that helps him. And here's the thing, there's no pressure on him. Yeah, there might be pressure from the fans because we want to see him perform. But for him, he's not the ace here anymore. That's Garrett Cole. He's going to be on a team now that obviously has run support and has good defense behind him. So there are reasons why I feel like it made sense that he wanted to come to New York on top of the Eric Crassie and the Mac Blake stuff. But additionally, I think it's just a good environment for a guy who wants to have that 1 year to prove how good he can be. And if he's good this year and the Yankees win a World Series, then you don't have to sign him after that, because then he's older and then you worry about what might happen in the future. But for the 1 year, it's almost can't miss. You don't have to worry about it. And for me, I think that really helps out. And then on top of that, I said this in the Twitter video as well, I don't think the Yankees give him $11 million unless they're supremely convinced that he is good to go. And therefore, they must feel, and a lot of teams must feel, that he's willing to do that because of how much he was offered. The bullpen sessions were apparently really good, and therefore I think that sort of at least gives an opening feel into what you might expect as far as expectations are concerned.
I hear what you're saying, and I partly agree that it's not identical to the Tulowitzki situation, because Tulo's injury history is way, way, way more extensive than what's happened with Kluber over the last couple of years. But I do have the same sort of feeling, because when they signed Tulo, we were like, Didi was going to miss half the season. He was having Tommy John surgery. We're in a similar situation where the number 2 starter on this team is out for half the season at least with Tommy John surgery. When they signed Tulo, we were flipping out, because it was like they're going bargain bin shopping for a guy who's never healthy, a guy who's a little bit older. Why are they expecting him to be able to play even half a season when they need him in the beginning of the year? Kluber is expected not to pitch just half the season until Severino comes back. He's expected to be available all throughout the year. I think it's not quite as bad because, like I said, the injury history isn't as extensive. But what worries me is that it's the same sort of feeling of a lottery ticket signing, that you're just hoping things break right, that this time it will be different. We'll get him in our organization, in our process, and we'll turn it around and we'll get it right. And I hear what you're saying, the mileage isn't there because he hasn't really pitched the last 2 years. But yes, I'll give you, the comebacker is terrible luck. But when he was rehabbing from the comebacker, he had an ab injury. And then the following season, 2020, it's a shoulder injury that he had to have surgery for. And you look at his age, he's, I think, 34 years old. You mentioned the amount of innings he pitched in 2018, which was 215 plus, I think, playoff games. All the mileage that came before it, that's where I start to think that it would be it's wishful thinking to expect him to come back in 2021 at full strength and full health. And let me just say, I'm praying that happens. That's what we want.
Well, yeah.
But it worries me that this could be the person we're relying on to be the guy that backs up Cole. At this point in the offseason, and with the amount of free agents that are still out there, it's too soon to say that this is it, because we don't know that this is it until they get to spring training or until other players are not available anymore. So it's not fair to judge yet. So at this point, it's an incomplete for me, but I still like the signing because of the potential it brings. But I like it in the context of it being the first of multiple moves, not the one and only move.
And to that point, I feel like the two things with the Tulo thing is and it's a good example, I feel like, but it's different because it's like the Tulo contract was, I think, like a $500,000 minor league contract or something like that. So therefore, when I look at this contract, I say to myself, I say to myself, they are investing money in this guy. They see him as, this guy isn't just a guy we're hoping replaces somebody. This is a guy we're expecting to see something. But all that aside, and this is a good point, and this is what I was kind of going to jump off of, as I said, my second point, and it leads us into a good follow-up conversation, which is the Yankees now have too many roster spots, which means they need to make a move because they need to put not Troy Tulowitzki, they need to put DJ LeMahieu.
Don't say that name again.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've talked about him way too much in the last 5 minutes of the podcast. No, they have to put now DJ LeMahieu and Corey Kluber on their 40-man roster, which means they need to move guys off of their 40-man roster in order to do it. And if I know Brian Cashman, and obviously he has proven to be a very good GM, as we know, and we all love Cash, and he proved us wrong when it came to the DJ thing, it almost makes too much sense for them to package the young talent that they have that is currently on their 40-man roster, which is names, of course, like Debbie Garcia and Clark Schmidt and Clint Frazier, for a pitcher if they can find one. And we will dive deeper whenever you guys want. We can do it now or we can do it in 5 minutes to who that guy might be. But that is the reason why I say to myself, all right, I'm not fretting, so to speak, that they're not going to do something and that they're just going to be like, all right, maybe we'll use the $6 million or whatever we have left in quote unquote cap room to see if we can get a cheapo pitcher to round out the rotation or something like that.
The thing, Julian, that you made a good point is that I think, like, yeah, they weren't when it comes to the risk of Corey Kluber, it does appear that other teams, they were there at this bullpen session and they offered him the same amount of contract, right? The same,
if not more. Josh had
if
said
not
that
more,
they
right?
offered more.
So so this consensus is that Corey Kluber is, like, he looked good, he looked great. So if other teams, I mean, these are professional scouts, these are professionals that watch these guys pitch. If they believe that he can come back to form and be a good pitcher this year, then we gotta believe him. But yeah, Josh, like you said, we're only reacting to what we have going on right now. And right now is the fact that Corey Kluber, yes, I like the signing. The fact is that Corey Kluber is our number 2 guy. That I don't like. That Corey Kluber is our number 2 pitcher right now. But yeah, we'll see if the Yankees make some deals. And like you said, Jules, we'll see.
Don't worry. At the trade deadline, they're going to be getting Severino back. And that's pretty much just like being able to make a trade.
You know that's going to happen when we looked at a lot of different areas and we made a lot of calls, but we just couldn't match up with multiple teams. And we have a pretty good pitcher coming back in Luis Severino, and he's a big part of this team. And I expect them to be a big part of the rest of the season. And I expect them to, be our guy in October and pitch game 2, game 3, whatever we decide. But Luis Severino is as good as a mid-trade acquisition as anyone else. So, yeah, thank you. I'm Brian Cashman. No more calls. No, but yeah, that's exactly.
Speaking of that, though, and this is the perfect point to jump into it, there was so much rumor talk and there was so much contract talk going around that sometimes some things that might not be huge rumors but can evolve into giant rumors get lost in the translation area, so to speak. And that's why we have Eric Ray Sepulveda, because E-Ray is always on Twitter and he's always looking at the Twitter sphere. And so for those of you who might have been missing the things that were going on, you might not have realized that there was a good opportunity for the Yankees to potentially make a deal for none other than Luis Castillo. And I am not the guy who was surfing it. E-Ray was giving Josh and I the info. So therefore, I want to hear the lowdown on the Yankees and the Luis Castillo saga from Eric Ray Sepulveda. E-Ray, hit us with it.
So this all started when Jim Bowden on MLB Network Radio, this reporter, I think it was either Hector Gomez, there were multiple reporters reporting that Castillo and Yankees were talking. But it all started and it blew up on our Twitter when Jim Bowden said that the Yankees and the Reds have talked about Castillo, but they weren't recent. But, of course, it blew up because everyone thought it was recent. But then you had these guys, these reporters reporting throughout the day. I was, as you said, on Twitter, just searching in the search bar, Castillo, Yankees, seeing all these different type of things, literally all day on Sunday. And then you had this gentleman, Ricardo Gabon, Venezuelan reporter, beat writer for the Yankees, it says in his bio, for Con las Bases Full. There's my Spanish. We'll see about that. I'm 100% Puerto Rican, folks. But yeah, what he basically said was that the deal was done with the Yankees, but then he kind of said that he meant it on the Yankee side. But of course, people read that and said, like, oh, a trade is done. And then he started retweeting Talking Yanks, where Talking Yanks was reporting that it was complete. And then apparently Yankees Twitter got Jeff Passan to tweet that there's nothing to this. Yankees Twitter got the Reds GM to make a comment. How wild is that? That Yankees Twitter made the Reds GM come out and say, no, there's nothing. We don't intend on trading Luis Castillo. Of course, intend is big, though. He said intend. That's a key word right there. He didn't say we're not trading him. So, yeah, that was everything that happened on Sunday. I don't know if these reporters, what they were saying was true. We had, I think Heyman say that the Reds asked for Gleyber Torres.
Yep, it was Heyman.
Oh, yep. When you ask for Gleyber Torres, I mean, I understand the Reds asking for him. If you're every team, right, you're going to start off asking for their best player. That's how negotiations work. If you're the Yankees, of course, you say, okay, thank you. We'll talk again in maybe a few weeks, a few months. We're not trading Gleyber Torres. But, yeah, that's really everything that went on with on Sunday. Just Luis Castillo to the Yankees. It was getting me excited. I want him on the Yankees. I bet you guys do too. But I don't want him at the expense of Gleyber Torres, of course. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if these talks will continue this offseason, if they continue at the trade deadline. But Luis Castillo's a great young pitcher, still has, I think, 2 or 3 years of control left. So you know that the value of it that the Yankees are going to have to give back is going to be high. I was seeing names like that would be discussed before Heyman came out with this Gleyber Torres, Clint Frazier, one of Debbie Garcia or Clark Schmidt, Miguel Andujar, just names like that. Maybe trading the Reds were also going to give us maybe one of their offensive guys that we would have to take back salary, which wouldn't make sense because we're trying to stay under the cap. And then some other guys were mentioning that maybe we would give them Ottavino to try to trade that money. Again, it was a lot of news, a lot of rumors, and apparently they're debunked. And here we are with no Luis Castillo on the Yankees still. So, yeah, that's really everything that I was kind of gathering from Twitter. It was a very hectic day for E-Ray, I got to say.
Yeah, well, that's why we keep you on, though, so you could be the guy who can proverbial get down and dirty with all the Twitter rumors, and then just tell me and Josh in our OLYP chat what is going on and what sort of things are happening. Josh, I'll let you respond first because you were the guy who said that there could be a guy who the Yankees could get out there who would be a perfect number 2. So you take it from here.
Yeah. So, well, obviously the name I mentioned, it was Masahiro Tanaka, who seems like he only wants to pitch for the Yankees or go back to Japan at this point. But the rumors are that he's seeking a 1-year deal for $15 to $20 million. The Yankees are not giving him that contract. I don't know if any team is giving him that contract. We love Tanaka. He's our guy. He has been. He's the longest tenured Yankee, or was in 2020. But he has fallen off slightly the last couple of years. And, you know, while he's a guy that, you know, isn't what he was when he first signed in New York, he's somebody that I think the Yankees could rely on to stay healthy for most of the season and to give them innings, quality innings, to get them to October, which is the ultimate goal. And then, as Brian Cashman loves to say, it's a crapshoot once you get to October. But the whole idea is that isn't happening. Tanaka is not going to be a Yankee unless he's willing to sign a contract for like $3 million or something like that, as E-Ray shows off his Tanaka bobblehead. But like we were talking about before, they have 42 players basically for 40 spots. They're not going to I don't think they're going to designate some people for assignment and just put them to waivers and allow teams to claim, their guys for nothing. I think personally what's going to happen is they're going to try to trade some of these smaller players like a Mike Ford or, Ben Heller, guys like that who are on the fringe of getting DFA'd. And I think that's more likely how they're going to free up those 2 40-man spots. They're not going to get anything back for those guys. I'm not saying that they're going to turn Mike Ford and Ben Heller into the number 2 starter. But what I am saying is that those 2 roster spots are going to be freed up. Maybe not those 2 guys exactly, but you get the point, for LeMahieu and Kluber. Then what happens after that? Adam Ottavino's $9 million luxury tax hit seems like the kind of move that could be made. He's, the type of contract, it's not so big, and it's only for 1 more year. It's not so big that it can't be moved. And, bullpen help is always needed by teams all over baseball. Look no further than the Philadelphia Phillies in 2020. I think you put Ottavino with some kind of prospect sweetener. You send him to a team to clear that $9 million space. That's another free roster spot. and then you kind of see what else they can do to bring in another pitcher. So I don't think it will be Tanaka. I don't know if it will be Castillo. I'm still not convinced he won't be traded until the season starts when I see him pitch opening day for the Reds. But I do think there's more coming. We just don't know what it is yet. It's all developing so slowly. And it just, the Yankees have telegraphed it, not in a bad way, but they've telegraphed it by having 42 players for 40 spots. And that to me says we are not done making moves yet, but we just don't know what they are. So we'll wait and see. But that's what I believe.
And it's been like that for a couple of days. So
yeah.
I will do you one better. The key cog in all of this, in my opinion, is Brett Gardner. And that is because there's the idea, and they talked about this last night on Yankees Hot Stove, and obviously we're recording this on Tuesday, January 19th, so Monday was when we heard it, that Brett Gardner still wants to come back. Jack Curry said, look, odds are Brett Gardner's probably going to have to come back on a lower deal. If he really wants to do that, he will be given the option, but the Yankees still love him, and they obviously still love him because he's a clubhouse leader, because he can play all the outfield positions, because he's good on defense, because of all the reasons that we know why Brett Gardner's good. He's been on the team long enough, so we don't need to do that. So if Brett Gardner wants to come back, that to me is the biggest catalyst of what moves they are going to make. Brett Gardner wants that outfield spot or wants to play, odds are you might see the Yankees be more interested in maybe putting a bigger package together to get a guy like Luis Castillo. And it might not be for Gleyber Torres, but they might do both Schmidt and Garcia and Frazier for him if that ultimately gets you Castillo. So that to me is really the biggest catalyst, because then you would have 43 guys for 40 roster spots, as well as an outfield that is just jacked up when it comes to what you have in terms of idea and talent. Not saying that might not be it. The Yankees might think the same thing that they think with Masahiro Tanaka, which is we really loved you guys when you were a Yankee, but right now we're trying to go in a different direction and we don't need you right now. But I do feel like, at least at this point, we've all kind of felt like it's only a matter of time until Brett Gardner comes, and he's not signed. So they do need to sign him. And that's one more person who would kind of put on the pile and think that you need to clear a roster spot for.
The thing is, I believe that Brett Gardner, the thing with Brett Gardner and the Yankees is that I don't think he's looking at any other team. So I believe that the Yankees can do whatever they want. Like Brett Gardner he can sign later on. You know what I mean? Like he can wait. I believe he can wait the whole offseason, and the Yankees and him could his agent can talk and be like, we'll have a spot for you if like the money's right, of course, because it's going to have to be a massive pay cut. What do you make? $9 million last year? Something like that? $7 million? It would have to be like what? $1 to $3 million this year. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I just think Brett Gardner, though, he can wait it out and see if what the Yankees will be able to do creative, like in the trade market and things like that.
Made 2.5 last year, or 2.9. 2.9.
Oh,
plus a $2 million signing bonus so 4.9 mil.
Okay, I don't know why for some reason I thought he meant like $9 million.
Yeah, but still, almost $5 million is, and obviously some of it's a signing bonus. But for a guy like Gardner, who is getting up there in age, that is still a contract hit that the Yankees don't need to spend unless they really want to. And that's why I say that might be the guy here. Ideal world, we all want the Yankees to trade Clint, trade Clark, Schmidt, and trade Devi Garcia for Luis Castillo, and then bring in Michael Brantley. Odds are, I feel like that might not happen. But if you told me that they traded those three for Castillo, who is now your number 2, and then you just signed Brett Gardner to be your backup outfielder on a cheap contract, I feel like most Yankee fans would be like, all right, I'm okay with that, because now you have 2 studs at the top of your rotation, and you get Sevy back in the middle of the summer. You hope Kluber's something. You know Monty's going to be pretty good, and you don't know where you're getting from Armand, but he is depth.
That would be ideal. I mean, that's ideal. We're talking that's a perfect.
That's too logical, though.
That's too logical. Yeah.
You know it won't happen because it's like exactly what we want to happen. So it just can't. And I'm not saying that as like a pessimistic, cynical thing. I'm saying that it's just not realistic.
Yeah.
To think like those exact dominoes will fall and it'll all happen the way we want it to happen. And we'll be sitting here in 9 months from now, 10 months from now with a World Series trophy and all that good stuff. That would be like the perfect best case scenario. I don't see it coming down that way. I'm sure you guys agree, but this is like, we're spitballing and we're saying, ideally, this is what we'd like to see happen, but it's not going to work out that way. And I'm in general by nature, when it comes to sports, I'm a pessimistic person. Most of my teams suck, and the only good team I have is the Yankees. So I guess those other teams kind of rub off on me a little bit more.
Might have Deshaun Watson though.
If that happens, the world's upside down, because the Jets having a top 5 quarterback does not exist. But
don't get me started there.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that we're sitting here saying, oh yeah, the Kluber move, it has to be the start of the pitching depth. It can't be it shouldn't, and it can't be the only thing that they do. But I'm not convinced
it might be. Yeah,
I'm not convinced until I see it that it's not. And we're sitting here being rational and smart, and we're saying, okay, they have they have too many players for the number of roster spots they're allowed to have, so that has to mean something else is coming down the pipe. Chances are, yes, it will be something. It may not be something that's that great. It could be they signed Jahulis Chassin to a minor league deal with an invite to spring training. It could be another move like that. They clear the 40-man spots for LeMahieu and Kluber, and then they sign somebody else to a minor league deal for spring training.
Would you be satisfied if it was Ottavino and a prospect someplace and then just sign Tanaka? I would be.
Yeah,
I'd be okay with that. Again,
I think we all agree we want financially, it doesn't make sense, because all signs point to the Yankees staying under the luxury tax, right? Until us wrong in that regard.
Yes.
It's staying under the luxury tax. But I think all of us would love Tanaka back if it makes sense. I don't think we're not going to give him 50 to 20 million. My hypothetical question for you guys actually was, say Kluber and Tanaka, again, total hypothetically fantasy booking, say both of them wanted 1 year, and we gave Kluber 11 million, and Tanaka wanted 11 million. Which one of those guys would have you signed actually? If
I would
1 year, 11 million. Which one do you think you would have signed?
That's a good question. I think I would have said Tanaka, just because he's been healthy and I kind of know what to expect. Kluber has the higher upside. There's much more potential with that than Tanaka. But at this point, with where this team is and what they need a sure thing. And Tanaka's as close to that as you can get. He's not your ace. He's probably not even your number 2, but you know what you're getting from that guy pretty much every single time he's pitching. And that's what I value most.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Ultimately, Tanaka is nostalgia-wise the guy who you would want there, because he's your little Tanaka E-Ray, and you wrote a song about him that we can't share on the podcast.
You cannot.
But he, like Josh said, will give you what you want. I don't know. Here's the thing. Going into 2021, I'm honestly glad that they did sign Kluber, because I do think Corey Kluber is going to be very good. And I have no problem doing a pie bet to do that in order to prove that's the case. But, I think they can sign both of them if they open up the opportunity. And if those are your 3 starters, then you're in pretty good shape, because Tanaka lost his splitter and his numbers haven't been that good. And he even was not that good of a playoff performer last year. He will still be a serviceable 3. And if your ace is Cole and he's going to win you 15 to 20 games next year, and then you have 2 number 3s and you're missing a number 2 until Sevy comes back, that's still good enough to win you the American League East, based off of how much worse the Red Sox and the Rays and everybody but Toronto has gotten this year. So, it's a year that I feel like, honestly, a number 1 bona fide ace and 2 number 3s is fine in 2021.
I agree with that completely, especially for the regular season. And we're hopeful that Sevy comes back and is what he was before all these injuries crept up. So I would agree with that. But if Tanaka is looking for, the big payday on a 1-year deal, we just have to put that out of our minds at this point because we don't.
Yeah.
If they did the Ottavino thing, 9 + 6 is 15, so they could do it another $11 million deal if that's what they really needed to do.
You're right. You're right about that. And I think that maybe that is possible. I guess Tanaka would have to come down on his asking price, and he wouldn't have to not take a contract from a Japanese team or another major league team. That's
the caveat. I think the money he wants, I think he'll definitely get that in Japan. Like, I just don't. Do you see another team offering him? Does he want a 1-year deal? Does he want? I know he wants 15 to 20 million, but I don't know if it says that he wants a multi-year deal, a 1-year deal. So that's going to be interesting. If his asking price does get lowered, then we might be into play if we could get rid of this contract, like you said.
Feels like all we've heard about it has been that he would like to go to the Yankees, and if it isn't the Yankees, maybe some other MLB teams might be there, but it's pretty much Japan or the Yankees or bust. And I don't know. Tanaka's not a $15 million pitcher, in my opinion.
Not anymore, no.
He was, and there's my dog barking in the background, but if he had a supremely good postseason like he had the last few years, I would have said, all right, well, we know what he's going to do for us in the postseason. That's all that really matters. But based off the fact that he lost some of his splitter and was not as good in the postseason, I feel like I'd be comfortable doing $11 million equaling Kluber, who I feel like has higher upside, but has been more injury prone. Outside of that, I don't think you go that much forward.
I agree. And I think basically kind of just to put a bow on this, the main things to look for from this point forward in terms of Yankee offseason moves is what happens to get those 2 40-man roster spots open, and then does anything happen with Adam Ottavino?
Yep.
The two roster spots have to open. That's a given. That they will work that out one way or another, whether that is DFAing people or whether that's trading them to other teams for non-40-man prospects. And then if they trade Ottavino, then we know something else is happening after that. But if the 2 spots just open up and then it's nothing else, then the offseason is done, I think, for the most part.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we need to look for this week and however long this offseason takes us. Whether that could even take us into spring training, for all we know.
I agree. Another guy out there who I guess you could just put your name on, and I'm not going to ask you guys a question about it, but he might be the Troy Tulowitzki of the potential starting pitchers is James Paxton, because he's still on the market, and we know where we're getting from him if they were going to give him maybe a lesser contract. But I'm not going to go too deep into that. As far as Castillo,
I don't want him.
Yeah, me neither. But as far as Castillo is concerned, hey, if it's not now, maybe it's at the trade deadline, and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to go over arbitration stuff and give E-Ray his chance to go refill his whipped cream so that way he can take this pie, considering it all is good. So in the meantime, E-Ray, you can go get that done while Josh and I talk a little bit loosely about the arbitration deals and things that happened with that. Of course, it was a couple of days ago, past 1 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. That means the windows for teams to negotiate with their arbitration eligible players closed. As far as the Yankees' big names are concerned, Josh, Bob Nightingale, he reported that Judge and the Yankees agreed on a $10.1 million contract for next season. Judge earned 8.5 in his first year of arbitration last year, but obviously the injuries played a part because he did not even make as much as Michael Conforto, another outfielder who we know plays for the Mets and has been a little bit healthier, maybe not as good, but a little bit healthier than Judge in his career. John Heyman had a list of follow-ups for the remaining Yankees, including Gary Sanchez, $6.3 million, Gio Urshela, $4.6, Luke Voigt got $4.7. Jordan Montgomery had a $2.1 million contract. Frazier, he got $2.1. And then there were talks about Gleyber Torres and the Yankees potentially going into an arbitration meeting because they could not agree. But according to John Heyman, the Yankees and the Gleyber Torres did find a middle ground at $4 million. Was Torres' first year in arbitration, so he flies in well under the number the Judge put up the year of his first arbitration, which of course is very good. And it's good that the Yankees did not go to a meeting because, as we know from past experience with Randy Levine and Dylan Betances, that usually has a history of bad blood when it comes to the New York Yankees. So, Josh, final thoughts on regards to the arbitration?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Yankees are I don't want to. I was going to say they're lucky that Judge is making so much less than he probably.
I mean, it sucks
his play
because
dictates,
he's hurt,
but it's because he's hurt all the time. So they're not really lucky. They'd probably rather pay him 15 or 20 if it meant he's actually in the lineup for most of the season.
And that probably
I mean,
would have had another MVP like year.
Exactly, and that's what we would prefer. We want him to get paid more, but whatever. Nothing here really surprises me. I mean, just looking at it, it's a good thing that none of them went to hearings. These are all pretty much their best players for the most part, besides, DJ and Giancarlo and Cole. These are most of their best players that we're talking about here. So it's a good thing that they were all able to agree, avoid the hearing. We never want to get to a hearing.
It's kind of insane if you think about it, how many guys the Yankees actually do still have in arbitration. They don't have main contract guys outside of the guys you mentioned.
Well, yeah. And if you want to get me going on this, I can go for days on this, because they have most of their core in arbitration. So that means they're making less than they should be making if they were on the open market. That means you need to go over the top and spend more money on the team and do more, make more moves, be more aggressive to win while you have these guys cheap and under team control. But that's another story for 20 minutes ago when I was railing on it then. But yeah,
Stop being logical, Josh.
Yeah.
The Yankees don't like when you're logical.
But I don't want to go down that road. Because I'm thinking about just how we have 2 more years of these conversations about the arbitration for most of these players, and then after that, we don't know what's going to happen.
And hey, we'll have plenty of time to talk about that.
We will have
the
plenty
Yankees
of time
don't make new moves next week, and we have to do a pod with nothing.
You're right. So let's save it for then. But it's a good thing that they avoided the hearings, and it seems like based on certain projections online, they actually ended up saving some money. I think the projections had them spending a bit more on certain guys, so it ended up working out pretty well, I think, for the Yankees. And they have $6 million or so to spend. Let's see what happens. Let's see what they do with it.
Absolutely, I agree with you. E-Ray, final thoughts before we get down to business.
I guess my final thoughts would just be this article that Sherman, I always have to give a little
of course. That's why I gave you a
Sherman wrote an article about potential that we can get into. I can list them. We can get into this, these names next pod. But we wrote an article about other possible pitchers that the Yankees might be interested in.
I like this tease. Coming up next pod.
This is professional. This is a professional tease right now.
Yes.
You see, we have Kyle Hendricks from the Cubs.
All right.
Pets from the Rockies. We have
from the Rockies.
Pablo.
Cut out a little bit.
Herman Marquez.
Okay, Herman Marquez.
We have Pablo Lopez from the Marlins.
Okay.
We have Brandon Woodruff from the Brewers.
Mm-hmm.
And Zach Gallen, who I doubt that they're going to trade, but he's on the article, from the Diamondbacks. So those are 5 possible potential trade names that the Yankees could be interested in that Sherman wrote.
That is juicy stuff. And if the Yankees don't make any deals in the next 7 days, when we do this pod a week from now, we will break down those names and we'll talk a little bit about what you guys are interested in seeing. But without further ado,
we'll
folks,
be doing that next week.
That's true. Yeah, I would agree with you. Without further ado, folks, it is that time. And because E-Ray lost the bet to me and Josh, he now has to do a pie. And it is going to be glorious. So, Josh, I ask you very briefly, and I will do the same, to mute our mics. And E-Ray, you narrate us through the countdown here to see this go down live and in living color. E-Ray, take it away.
All right. Well, I have the pie next to me. I am taking my glasses off.
Make sure you're showing back up a little bit so we can see what's going on and stuff like that. You have to really Vanna White.
What do you want? A whole show here? Huh?
Yeah, of course. This is the moment that's going to put you on the map, Mr. Ratings. I hyped you up. Now you got to give us what we want, the audience.
All right. Well, I'll talk about I spilled the pie before, but now I cleaned that all up. But let's get back to the moment, Eric. Focus on the moment here. All right. I have backed up the pies right next to me. I am taking off my glasses. I cannot see any of you guys. I am lifting the pie. I'm just gonna go straight for it. So here we go. And
let's go.
That's a Chapman fastball right to my face.
That was glorious.
Did you like that?
That was awesome.
Amazing. See, it was worth it. It was everything I could have wanted.
Glasses back on. Wow, look at my face.
Everyone needs to watch this on YouTube.
Give us a big cheese, E-Ray. Hold it. You got to talk while you cheese.
Oh, sorry. I'm
it's a
cheesing.
podcast. It's an audio. It's an
It's
audio
a podcast.
vehicle.
I thought we were live on the network. No, I'm just kidding. But here we are. Imagine if I had to do the thank you for making me do this at the end. It would have been interesting for me to do this in the beginning.
That is the face of a winner, folks. And a face of a guy who not only is a winner, but is happy that it was DJ LeMahieu who was the guy who made him do that. Right, E-Ray? It would have been a lot worse if that was like Trevor Bauer signing with the
Red
Diamondbacks
Sox
or something, or the Red Sox.
Yeah.
They made you do that.
No,
So
I'm glad that it
DJ.
was. I'm glad that it was our boy. He's back in pinstripes for the next 6 years, and I'm excited, man. And look, I pied myself like the 2009 Yankees when AJ Burnett used to pie everyone after every walk-off because that team was ridiculous with the walk-off. I am now cleaning myself off with paper towels. What's the brand? Brawnies? No.
Braun. He's giving us the full play-by-play. But until E-Ray goes off
Bounty paper towel,
Bounty.
folks.
Shout out
That's
to
the best
Bounty.
one. That's the best one.
I'm signing off from the pie place over here.
Nice work, and thank you for being a sport, because not only did Josh and I want to see that, but I'm sure every single person who was tuned in to our Little Yankees podcast was very excited for when this day was going to come. So thank you, E-Ray.
Thank you, DJ LeMahieu.
Job
And
well
thank
done.
you to the fans.
Yep, of course, he's ratings, and that's the reason why we have him on the pod. As always, folks, you can listen to brand new episodes of our Little Yankees podcast on wherever you listen to podcasts. It could be Spotify, it could be Apple Podcasts, it could be TuneIn, it could be SoundCloud. And if you want to see E-Ray's glorious face when he hits himself with the whipped cream pie, make sure you go to YouTube and search Our Little Yankees podcast. All of the episodes with all of our beautiful faces are on there. So until next time, folks, I'm Julian Coltree, joined as always by Josh Levin and Eric Ray Sepulveda. We will see you next week.